Welcome back. All noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Rena's voice resounded, loudly and terribly. You see, until you forgive them, they'll always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside. Oh. I couldn't understand what Rena was saying. It came to me too. Oyashiro-sama did. Ooh. That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Rena saying? Uh-oh, the eyes. Hasn't Oyashiro-sama come to you as well, Keiichi-kun? I'm probably the only one who you can confide in. I won't let you transfer out, okay? Ah ha 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 ha. I hope that was enough ha's. Rena's demented laughter clanged around inside my head. Was Rena saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard about that when I asked about Rena. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Yes. Oishi-san began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter. So all of these details are just what I heard from those involved. Meaning it's not that credible. You said there were victims. Didn't Rena just break all the windows? No. Rena Ryugu had attacked 3 boys. Ooh. Using a metal bat. Ooh. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Oh. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. There was no report to the police, so... They were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there would be a criminal investigation, but why didn't they press charges? I tried asking the 3 male victims for their side of the story, but they were all reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid. Even after she had transferred schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it starting from the beginning? Oh, do we have to? Rena hit people while she broke the windows, or was it she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? Yes. They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Rena Ryugu was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Rena Ryugu, and it seems they were a group of friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the 4 of them were together. So what happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool storage shed and beat the 3 of them down one after the other. As you do. What? There were no witnesses. This was an account pieced together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day after school, Rena and 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At that time, Rena underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the 3 of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Oh. Kablammy. Oh, kablammy. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other. Kablammy. Oh, leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their head, she made her way towards the school building. Oh. Then she broke the glass windows one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on scene and subdued her. What was this change Rena underwent? What matches up in the statements from the 3 was a sudden change. The point that there was a transformation. Thank you for that word salad. Transformation. I also could recall Rena's transformation. Keep saying transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Rena that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Rena. That transformation they're talking about, had it happened before? No, there was nothing like that. As far as I could find out, in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often, where people suddenly change like Rena did? Of course it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then you're saying there was a dormant element in Rena that caused that transformation. I cannot say that for certain. But according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side to her. Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat. Who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. They certainly didn't see the bat coming. Oh! I myself sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that was Rena, even now. Then what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the school, so the three of them were carried in and treated quickly. What about Rena? What about the police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they are called. Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage, why didn't they file charges? That's what caught my attention as well. Either some threat or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted to. We're talking about you after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah. But I told you at the beginning, didn't I? That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather, they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk. Didn't want to touch it. Touch what? Didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here and Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did the teacher at that school tell you anything? A school is hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep scandals under wraps. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly, you see. Then there was no comment from the school. No, they denied the incident even happened. It's just 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records. The victims didn't speak. The school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all. Yeah, I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wished this incident to be kept from the public. So, if you and I both forget about it, Maebara-san, then this incident will probably just fade away. For a brief period, we sat in silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with. After that, she was suspended by the school, and during that time she underwent psychiatric counselling. Did you hear anything from that doctor? Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics. Or at least, very tight-lipped. Nothing, even after you showed them your badge. That's how it tends to work, yeah. I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legal binding authority, after all. Then how did you know that Rena confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it? There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing her my badge. Then what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all that she remembered was what she overheard from inside the room. The nurse said that at the time, Rena Ryugu was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than a counselling session. She spoke with her mother there for some of it, but partway through her mother was asked to leave so it could become a private counselling session between just the doctor and Rena for a while. The part with Oyashiro-sama, when did that pop up? Partway through. She screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in. It was Oyashiro-sama! Rena suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before that, so I had no idea what the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor calmly and collectedly asked Rena to have a seat. What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. The fundamentals of counselling were believing what you were told. Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama. And they've finally gotten to me. That's the town you lived in before you moved here, isn't that right, Ryugu-san? I didn't want to move, but because of my mum and dad's circumstances we had to. But Oyashiro-sama wouldn't allow it. Ryugu-san must have lots of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now, you must be missing them dearly, don't you think? I want to go back. Back to the past. I mean, back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner. But now it's too late. Oyashiro-sama has come. Oyashiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa, isn't that right? Everyone knows. It's Hinamizawa's guardian deity. And if you ever try abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving, you'll incur his wrath. You had moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then it was just now that this god has arrived, is what you're saying. You might not believe me, but Oyashiro-sama exists. That nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered. Dramatic. That it was Oyashiro-sama's doing, right? I do believe there's that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa. That if you leave the village, then you incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Maebara-san. I knew very well what those scorned by the village incurred. To hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. Then the following year, Satoko's parents, supporters, and leading advocates for the dam were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I'd heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside threats being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who leave? Normally, people who leave villages aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule that the people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. What? Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? I have a feeling that saying went entirely over my head. Oishi-san pondered for a bit over on the other end of the receiver, then began speaking again. Well, I told you of long ago when Hinamizawa was called Onikakushi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of ogres. I don't know why people still try to translate Oni. Like, Oni is so common these days, just say Oni. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worshipped the ogres. So, Onikakushi was hallowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, you were cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onikakushi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that. But for leaving to also be no good. This translation's a little iffy sometimes. That's. Also the ogres, you see. They were being strictly watched by Oyashiro-sama, so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Oyashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onikakushi and the rest of the world. I see. Naruhodo ne. I finally understood what sort of thing Oyashiro-sama was. So basically, Oyashiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I don't know very much myself. Same. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it a bit better if it was like that. Like what? Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So, because Rena originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means, because Rena moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Why do they keep saying its and he alternatively? Pick one. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards they did move back to Hinamizawa after all. Those who abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. Waffling! Stop it! But then why only Rena? Shouldn't Rena's parents also have been guilty of the same transgression by moving away and have been cursed? Also, in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, then it'd be insane. Indeed, in the membrane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of a deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and one disappearing on the day of the Watanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Same. Even if it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't add up as to why her classmates, the victims who were beaten with a metal bat, wouldn't press charges. Long sentence. You don't think the victims were cowering because they believed that a terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Can we go back to Rena? Of course I didn't want to believe it. But more importantly, I had just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Rena made between Oyashiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Rena as well. She was affected by Oyashiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon which she had used at the time of that horrendous act was, again, a metal bat. And finally, me. I'd encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learnt that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same thing happened to Rena? But there was one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Rena was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Rena, Satoshi, and finally me. Could it be that I was really under Oyashiro-sama's curse right now? No, more importantly than that, what should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Rena was fine. Fine? Rena had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Rena residing within her. And here, right now, it was standing before me. Dun dun! The eyes. Rena, please tell me, what will happen to me? Rena stood imposingly. She's like 5 foot something. She stood there imposingly, looking at me menacingly. Satoshi disappeared, but Rena didn't disappear. So what will happen to me? Ah ha 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 ha. I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. What? It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling. Don't worry, I'll save you. Uh-oh, we're red again. Rena took one step forward, still holding the axe high above her head. Now then. One step closer, Rena's face spread out to fill my vision. Speak. One step closer. Rena's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer. If it was close enough to touch yours and she's still pushing closer, then that means they're touching. There's something you want to say, isn't there? I'll listen. I'll save you, okay? Speak, okay? Speak, okay? I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away from Rena. Yeah, that's enough. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end. What? Because when that laughing ended... The moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang to my feet so fast even I couldn't believe it and pushed Rena away with both hands. No thank you! Rena was light as a feather. Thrown about by the unbalanced weight of the axe, she was sent backwards as if she had been carried off by the wind. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. That's a horrifying image. Get away from Rena. Run away. Run away, run away, survive. I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I had been holding on to a bat the entire time. Yes, we just had a whole conversation about it. Such a worthless weapon. Rena disagreed. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even further down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of that simulacrum. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm sorry. Of Rena coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment I was bewildered by the scenery I felt I knew but couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized. It was the dam site. The fact that I dashed madly and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. Ah ha ha, slow turn to the camera. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a single soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then they might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Rena wasn't there. Instead, I saw 2 villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Rena, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. How dare they? Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, 2 adults wandering around without a purpose. It was enough to raise questions. I mean, not really. But more than anything else, those eyes. They weren't chit-chatting while walking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. If they were part of the group after me, then they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Rena would catch up with me. That's right, I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed towards me as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped to the conclusion that Rena was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need to fear anything else. But right now, I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening, being unable to shake Rena off as she slowly closed in on me, but this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. Such a way with words, Keiichi. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Probably not a time to calm down, though. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in that frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it would take to blink twice, when this frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. On top of me. And then... Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Go with the right leg, or go with the left. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. The singularity! Right. Left. I swung the bat in a wide arc with my right arm. Using that inertia, I stopped and suddenly spun. What? The 2 of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms, ready to grab me, instead grasped at empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him being able to figure it out, spun around on the spot I shouldn't have been and faced me in astonishment. That didn't make a lot of sense. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. Kablammy! It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. Fight me! They made me certain that they weren't just two people out for a walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Rena. I can't deal with that tiny little girl. I'm going to take on these two giant men instead. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wryly on the inside. Yes, don't we all? What do you want with me? Next one is going to be right in your face, you bastard. Language. It's fine if it was just a bluff. That way of translating that sentence always bothers me. It's fine if is not something we ever really say in English, is it? By barking out at them, I was able to fire myself up. Random thoughts I have while I'm reading all of this text. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me with unbelievably calm expressions on their faces. One of them would grab onto my bat and the other would hold me down. Was that their plan? Taking on both of them at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured from every pore in my body. That is a horrible thing to imagine. Then I'd just have to settle it with the first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down. Narrowing my target down to the man on the right who had already been knocked down before, that's a long way to describe a person, I stepped in and swung with all my might. There was no way for an unarmed person to guard against it. It would cause immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap like a twig. Ow! If they turned their back to it, then ow! It was possible that the blow would travel all the way to their vital organs. Also spine. Spine. There's a spine there. Ow. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed further through the kill zone between us and delivered a fist right into my gut. Take that. Not good. With this distance, in this position, and in this state, there was no way for me to dodge it. Oh, that was an explosion. That did not sound like a gut punch. The world flipped upside down. I understood that I was being tossed around like a rag doll. I landed on the soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil press against my face. It didn't hurt at all. But the moment I thought that, I suddenly felt pain coming from the abrasions on my skin, as well as the contents of my stomach being forced upwards. Ew, flooding my mouth with a bitter sensation. No thank you. I knew very well that I didn't have the time to relish this experience. What? Why would you relish what? What? I stood up as quickly as I could, but at that moment the other man was already barreling towards me. Being able to comprehend calmly that I simply couldn't dodge it made it all the more upsetting. After ploughing into my stomach full force once again, my assailant twisted around behind me and locked his thick arm around my neck. Oh, it's getting kinky. My throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled or that I was about to go unconscious. My vision simply darkened and a silent, whining noise began playing deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was more than likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake this arm off of me, I couldn't run. I couldn't fight back. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up with the phrase that adequately described my situation. But he just did. It's right there. Dire straits. Come on. Fade to black. Alright, that is actually a perfect place to end this episode. We're going to find out what happened to Keiichi, who just blacked out, in the next episode. Oh, we're still fading. Oh, we're still fading out. Passing out to the sounds of the Higurashi. Oh look, we're back home. Everything's perfectly okay. Happy ending. Aww. Sure is taking its time though. There we go. Alright, so we're going to end this episode here on a familiar ceiling, and I'll see you again next time. See ya.